My name is Gary Butterfield.
My name is Cole Ross.
Welcome to Best Quality Vacuum. I don't remember how we opened this show. We don't record it often enough for me to remember.
Our show about Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul, El Camino, and the entire Vince Gilliverse. Yeah.
Yes.
There we are.
Yeah. But there's one thing you don't know. This isn't a podcast.
Means.
That's me throwing the podcast on the ground.
just throwing an iPod shuffle down.
Yep, and exploding like they're prone to do.
Oh, you know. Those little batteries.
Yeah.
They can't hold their secrets forever.
Mm-mm.
Yeah. We're talking about a very good episode of this program, Gary.
Yeah. Yeah. The birth of Heisenberg.
You saying it that way on purpose? Have I been? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, have I been consorting with somebody who says Heisenberg dumb?
Heisenberg. Yeah, I'm Heisenberg. Same name. Yeah, this is a really good episode. The penultimate episode of season 1 because of the writer's strike. This episode written by George Mastras and directed by Bronwyn Hughes. And this originally aired March 2nd, 2008.
Yeah. This is picking up after Walt and Jesse decide to start cooking again. But they have a distribution problem. It's just Jesse going out and slinging a pound of meth by the teeth. Yep. And they've got to start figuring out how to move in bulk.
Yes. I learned so much about meth doses from this episode.
Mm-hmm.
Because I had no idea what a lot of meth was or like how much you bought in a unit. You know, having never bought meth. And now I understand selling an ounce in a night to like myriad weirdos is really good.
Yeah.
You know, that's he's doing great.
16 deals where you have to meet, talk, get to a safe location, and then make the deal. Yeah.
Yeah. Good job, Jesse.
Yeah.
There's a subplot here with Hank slowly on the trail. And we say slowly, we mean over the course of the entire show.
Yeah.
He finds out the gas mask from the original cook site came from Walt's high school and kind of presses him a little bit.
Yes.
The biggest thing that we get here is that we had our first villain of this Crazy Eight, a villain, you know, in name, but ends up chained up to with a bike lock for most of it. So not very dangerous up until the end. We introduced the Tuco, Tuco Salamanca here, who is a really big presence in the show, a really huge presence in Better Call Saul as well. Mm-hmm. And one of the, I think, rewatching these Tuco episodes, a lot of shit gets talked about the cartel stuff in Better Call Saul. Mm-hmm. And I get it. Like, I think it's not entirely off base. I will say that this really Better Call Saul providing additional kind of like Tuco lore was additive to me.
Yes.
Understanding how Tuco operates and his kind of known quantity as a wild card.
Yeah.
In this thing, like you get the sense that him coming back in to be in charge here was what nobody wanted.
Right.
This is another Tuco even being on the field right now is another unforeseen consequence of Walt and Jesse's criming.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah. Tuco played by Raymond Cruz. Another X-Files alum. This is a fantastic performance.
Oh, it's incredible.
Yeah, like even just like the physicality of it, like the like he's kind of a little guy, you know, but there's kind of a like a density to him and his action and the how erratic he is, and he does a very, very good job of swinging back and forth between seemingly amicable while still being extremely scary because he's constantly giving you the eyes, his little lie detector, right? Yeah, yep. And then just incredible violence.
Yes, at random intervals. Yeah. It's my favorite kind of this kind of villain, like the entirely unpredictable, villain. Like one of the things I love about, and I'm not the first person to say this, but Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul introduced us to some of the greatest TV villains of all time.
Of course.
And we get every flavor of them. And what's really interesting about Breaking Bad specifically is Walt climbs up the ladder of these. So like he assumes Tuco will be professional because he thinks he himself is.
Yeah.
He finds out that Tuco is not. He outplays Tuco. You know, when he eventually meets Gus, he assumes he is as good as Gus, but he's not. You know, just because he was more professional than Tuco doesn't mean he's on Gus's level.
Mhm.
He eventually outmaneuvers Gus and then is like, oh, because I did that, of course I can outmaneuver and play these Nazis,
Mhm.
you know, and that ends up being his downfall.
Yes.
Like him constantly besting these people and taking all of the wrong lessons from it
Yep.
is ultimately ends up fucking him. And it doesn't begin with Tuco, but Tuco is the first of the cartel stepping stones that really matter. Like he didn't really have to best Crazy Eight.
Mhm.
You know, that was just getting his feet wet.
Yeah. I mean, and then there's also like it kind of seems like the assumption that he has, you know, like building up is either that as he climbs the ladder, they're going to get less violent or at least more controllable in
Yes.
terms of how that violence can be directed. You know, like Tuco, he is a walking exposed nerve who, you know, he's kind of simultaneously low rent and just not afraid of any adverse consequences for what he might do.
Yes.
He exists and primarily demands, you know, commands fear from his subordinates and anybody who gets directly in front of them because they're afraid of what he's going to do to their body. Right.
Yes.
He exerts a lot of a lot of strength. As Walt climbs the ladder and figures, okay, I beat the guy who does the overt violence. You know, he gets kind of shocked to find out he's even more fucked under a regime of, you know, more controlled violence that has a mic in play. Right.
Yes. Yeah. He's out of his league
Yeah.
in every possible way. It's great from every angle.
Yeah.
This is a really big episode for this season. This is probably the biggest, like most action packed part of the season. It's the second time Walt has done some weird chemistry MacGyvering
Yeah.
in the thing, but it's the most premeditated.
Yes.
This will kind of peek through the cracks later in the show, but it'll take a very different tone.
Yes.
You know, like this is, you know, Lily of the Valley. Like this is not something that the Walt is beyond doing. This is as flashy and silly and superhero-y as it ever gets.
Yeah. I mean, he does the Joker walk.
Yeah. It's
So.
very Joker. Yeah.
This is the only other episode, I think, in addition to what was it, the pilot, one of them before had a commentary on it. This has a commentary. Again, it's a group, kind of a group affair. Tons of people on it. Kind of a sense of a little bit of a party, even though they're in the middle of shooting, or at the end of shooting season 2 at this point.
It sounds like they're having a lot of fun.
Gotta give them that. At least they're having fun.
You know, like it seems like they like each other and they're all having fun. So it's a little bit fun to listen to. I just don't get a lot from it.
Yeah.
There's a couple little behind the scenes stories and there's a couple little details about how they shot some of the trick shots. And like, I'm typically, you know, I like the trick shot stuff in Breaking Bad. I think the photography and stuff is very good in it. I think it's better, you know, as it goes on, and then as Better Call Saul comes up. It's not what I'm here for.
Yeah.
It's not my primary interest, but it does feel like it's the primary interest of the people on the commentary.
Yeah, I like that. I like that stuff, but I prefer seeing it in a bullet pointed list as opposed to listening to a commentary for it.
Yeah. It's just it's so, to me, it is an important part of the gestalt of the value of the show, but it's not as important to me as like character. You know, it's never going to be as important to me as plot or character, or writing. You know, like it is always going to be a secondary concern to me.
Yes.
You know, and that stuff's harder to talk about. It's much easier to talk about how they got a certain trick shot.
I mean, especially with that many people in the room.
That's true. Like there are two, like I would love to hear this with Vince Gilligan and the writer.
Yes.
You know, not that everybody else isn't fun. Like they all bust each other's balls. It's real rowdy and goofy. Everybody pick on it. Like you just feel like a dog pile is going to break out at any point.
Yeah.
Like, and a pinch to grow an inch, you know, and fall. Like it's really raucous. And silly in a way that, again, a little bit fun, but not as enlightening as I want it to be.
Yes. Yeah. But I thought it was crazy. I didn't know that they shot each episode in 8 days. That is a
Mhm.
very tight schedule for something as filmic as this. You know,
Yes. Yeah.
a thing I did know is those time lapses. It's not like they are like dead simple to do, but you can do them with very, very readily available technology. Like the time lapse for the series, I believe, is done just by these two guys that they hired out of LA who drive out with like a consumer grade Nikon.
Yeah. Just a Best Buy Nikon
Yeah.
there. They talk about who is involved, like who everyone is. Bryan Cranston talks about how writers are really underrated.
Hmm.
He's right, but
Hmm.
also it does contribute to a general everyone doing a circle jerk
Yeah.
in this. A funny parallel to this, and it's something I participate in, so I'm not judging it too much. But when you play a show in a band,
Oh yeah.
after the show, everyone has to go around and tell each other how awesome everything was, and you
Yes.
have to like catch everybody in the band. And last time we did a show, the band a band played before us had 3 people, and then the band played after us had 7 people on the stage at one point.
Okay.
So like while trying to get my equipment together, just making sure I told everybody that it was great as kind of like a social, because they had told me it was great, and
Uh-huh.
it's just this like weird social dance. And
Yeah.
I got very disgusted by it. Like I got 1/100th Joker-fied. And it wasn't that they weren't great. Like it's just, man, can we dispense with this ritual?
Yeah.
And that's a little bit what this feels like. To
Hmm.
me. Like just like, oh, the performances you guys did was great. Oh, the performances, your writing was great. But your
Yeah.
directing, that was great.
Yeah.
It just goes round and round.
I need insight, please.
Yeah. It's a environment in which insight cannot grow because everything is too positive to reflect.
Yes.
Like there is no insight. I'm not saying that like this episode's a great episode. I'm not saying there are failures to reflect upon,
Hmm.
but like I would have been interested in more like near misses or like
Yeah.
the thought process behind making some of the choices that they made
Hmm.
in this. Dean Morris is very avuncular during this, and making a lot of like horny locker room jokes
Yep.
during like this got me laid. He's basically being Hank during the whole thing.
Yeah, his hankness comes it comes very natural to him. You didn't
Yes.
say his full name, Dean Sex Gifts Norris.
It's because I'm evoking his sexuality in a negative way here, and to me the sex gift tweet is to be celebrated.
Oh, it's wonderful. I love it.
Yeah, I think I love that about him. I think that's like the chattest thing I've ever seen anyone do. Just leave that up for a turn. He'd be like, yeah, man, I was searching out sex gifts. I don't even watch videos. I'm that fucked up.
I need it to be 5 seconds long and soundless.
In a loop. Yeah, I can't. I can't so it's pretty bland there. The actors ended up writing a lot of detail into the poker scene. It was originally going to be bowling, but poker is cheap, and also Bryan Cranston is a professional poker player.
Oh, I didn't know
he was
that.
able to, they talk about it in the commentary.
Oh,
They talk about how they didn't know how to do it, but Bryan has done real shit with poker.
Neat.
So he was going there, and there are a lot of little character touches and stuff that come through in that scene.
Nice.
There. But other than that, like you don't, and then you learn some trivia from it. You learn that there's a scene, and we'll talk about this later, where they use the edit to repurpose a scene of Walter masturbating into him throwing up.
Yep.
Great editing. And then Aaron Paul, at the right moment went to go ask to move and then didn't get crushed by a boulder. Very wily coyote-esque way for him to die.
For him to go. It's like, all right, well, hey, guess what, Aaron? Writer strike, save your character. Kaboom. Yep. Well, all right.
Whoa. So, let's get into it. There's a lot to talk about.
Let's do. We open up. This is one of the cold opens that is both, let's say, a thing that is happening in present day, but also at the current time, but also foreshadowing. Flash forward, getting us a little bit of that irony. We have Jesse and Walt in the RV, with Walt kind of laying down the law after they have decided to cook again, specifically on their division of labor.
Yeah. This opens up with a stunt shot of light going in through the bullet holes of the RV. When I talk about not really liking commentaries talking about that behind the scenes stuff, this is a great example because they're all talking about how good the shot is. And Vince Gilligan goes, how long did it take you to get that shot? In his little cute Muppet voice. And the director goes, a couple takes. And I'm like, ooh, what searing insight into the film part of filmmaking that is. Like, it's a cool shot, but it felt like no information was fucking conveyed.
Yeah. It's just like, and also like, instead of phrasing it as a question, you could say like, oh, that effect is harder to achieve than you would think. Like,
sure. Or say how you got it. Yeah. Like, as opposed to just, it took a couple shots. Like, it just, I don't know, man. I understand in theory how that stuff could be interesting. I have yet to have it presented in an interesting way.
Yeah.
To me. Walt is telling Jesse, like, listen, if we're going to go through this, I handle the chemistry. He's looking through the mess that the fight with Jesse and Badger caused. He sees a 40 on the ground. Like, this is not acceptable. I will handle the chemistry. I'm going to be a silent partner. You deal with the customers. And I don't want to know them. I don't want to hear anything about them.
Yeah. And then this is intercut with kind of a scene of a ruined street, kind of this building where something obviously exploded. There's debris everywhere. And Walt is saying, no matter what, no matter what happens, no more bloodshed, no more violence. We're done with that. And of course, the irony here, him saying, I'm never going to deal with the customers, no violence. We see Walt in the aftermath of something incredibly violent happening as he went to deal with a customer. He is walking toward the camera, holding a bag. He's got a bloody nose. And very importantly, he is now bald. He is shaved his head.
The explosion blew off all of his hair. We're led to believe at this point. Like a cartoon inventor.
Yeah. Are you sure a gorilla didn't come and yank it off?
Yeah. Just whoop, 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 whoop. So we're present day. Walt and Skylar at chemo. He tries to get her to leave. She wants to stay. And he says, I'd rather have somebody there when Walt Jr. gets home.
Yes.
And Skylar says, hey, have you heard from Elliot? She hasn't seen a check. He's like, no, I got the check. I got it deposited. It's all fine.
Yeah. And she's giving him looks. She's kind of dubious, but not wanting to, break this. Because, he's sitting in a recliner, getting poison pumped into his veins. Not the time. Especially not in front of these people. Yeah.
And the reason he's shooing her off is because he wants, when he goes and writes the check for the receptionist, it's a post-dated check. She cannot cash until Monday.
Right.
He doesn't want Skylar to be for that because it would interrupt his lie.
Yes. Yeah.
We get to a cook here, a little time-lapse cook, or this scene around ABQ, around Albuquerque, a cook, and then cut over to Walt giving a lecture about change in energy.
Yes. Even an otherwise harmless substance, man, can react violently.
A chemical process or, can happen slowly. We don't notice it. If it happens quickly, we do. Does anyone have an example of that? And somebody eventually raises their hand and goes, explosions.
He calls on them. This is such an accurate depiction of a high school classroom without me in it. Where I
wish I had said that.
What?
It's a very brutal thing you're about to say about yourself, and I can only assume.
No, I was one of those assholes who was like, oh yeah, I know the answer. I'll put up my hand.
Hey, this may surprise you. I know that. And that's what I'm referring to. That's why I wish I had said it. This coalesced classroom, this without Martin Prince.
Teacher.
40-year-old Martin Prince.
I'm not like that now.
No,
okay, I'm kind of like that now.
You're less like that now.
Yeah.
Through me and your brother relentlessly giving shit about it. Like, our hope is that by the time you get to 70, it's all entirely gone.
Yeah, hopefully. Well,
we've been meeting in secret.
If wishes were fishes.
Fans and butts.
No, but I love how getting anybody to interact with him is like pulling teeth. He's like an example, and he's like pointing at the board, and just this girl who just is, thinking about, I don't know, other stuff.
Anything, kid stuff. When I was in school, I paid attention. Like, I was a not, did not study for tests, just kind of picked stuff up for paying attention. Yeah. But I also didn't want to say the answer. Mm-hmm. Like, and it wasn't because I was embarrassed
to know things.
to know things. I just didn't like, I don't know. I didn't see the upshot of it.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
I just want to be here. I want to watch a documentary about this for
Yeah.
45 minutes. And then the other thing that would always happen too is I would be drawing and it would help me listen. Like I would just like doodle, you know, and teachers hated that shit.
Oh, of
I was
course.
like, this is helping me, you idiot. Like I'm absorbing information better.
It's either
with
this or nothing. In fairness, part of my desire to answer every question, or at least to be there, was to avoid moments like this because I got fucking bored waiting for other people. I was just like, no,
also really awkward.
Let's just get on. I don't.
If you have any empathy for the teacher, it can feel really awkward.
Yeah.
You know, where it's like, it's very undignified when a teacher has to beg somebody to answer. And it's like, man, pull yourself up off the ground.
You don't need to, you don't get paid enough for this.
This is pathetic.
Yeah.
So he has this formula on the board for fulminated mercury. And he's talking about this.
Everybody knows from Sekiro.
Yes. The little foreshadowing here. The faster they undergo change, the more violent the release of energy. Again, a classroom telling you what's happening to the characters.
Yes.
So, he's also struggling with chemo at this point. And he says everybody go read. He excuses himself to go vomit. This is the standing vomit scene. Until I found out in the commentary that this was a masturbation scene repurposed, I was going to critique his vomiting technique.
Oh yeah, no.
Yeah, you don't vomit standing up. That's a really good way to ruin multiple shirts and pants.
Yeah. That's something you do when you're drunk in your mid-sentence.
Yes. And you become a legend amongst your friends, but like also a joke. I'm somebody who vomits. And I was like, man, this guy fucking sucks at vomiting. Like, you may know chemistry, Mr. White, but you don't know anything about vomiting. He goes and vomits, and then the very saintly new character of Hugo the janitor comes up. It's like, I'll clean it up, Mr. White. You have kids to teach. It's so funny.
Education has value. Maybe they won't end up like me. You're a good man, Mr. White.
Yeah, it's so funny how like if the character had been introduced before, it would maybe feel a little jarring. For him just to be a direct victim of Walt's crapulence, you know.
I did not mean that. Like, oh, maybe they won't be like me. Like being a janitor is undignified. That is the kind of fiction that this is. Yeah, it would be very funny if he said that, I guess is what I'm saying.
It's an archetype.
I loved our janitors at school. They were fun people. They were interesting people to talk to. Yeah.
Our school, we had a janitor who was named Gary, who had some sort of neurodivergence, going on in his head, and his whole thing. And kids were cruel, so it wasn't like all sunshine. But I remember kind of liking him because if you ever sat on a table, that would like set him off, and he would come marching up and going, "What is it? Tables are for glasses, not for asses. Tables are for glasses, not for asses." And it was just fun to watch an adult swear at that time. And it was really like clockwork how you could get him to do it. And I did not participate in this. I was not manipulating the janitor. I wasn't that kind of, I was a shit, but I wasn't that kind of shit. But that's what other people would do.
When I was in elementary school, the elementary school janitor, he owned a bison farm like that. Like just that's just he just lived on that.
Janitor, he moonlighted as a janitor.
he raised a bison, and just during it was like in third grade there was a unit we were talking about indigenous tribes, nations, and he would bring in some of the bison. It's like, oh yeah, people would eat this. Like, doesn't it kind of taste like sweet hamburger? It's like, yeah, it does. That rules. Yeah. Just
when you said he'd bring in some of the bison, I was expecting him like
wasn't a fucking petting zoo.
Bringing several bison into the school.
He would bring in some of the, not the bison the creature, bison the substance.
Yes. Fulminated bison.
The body count was massive.
Oh, there's one thing you don't know. This isn't bison.
Oh God. Anyway, yes, this saintly character.
Yes.
I'm
We
very,
cut over to group therapy.
I want to camp out on the masturbation there real quick.
Oh,
I'm really glad
let's.
I'm glad they cut that
It's so
initially.
American Beauty.
Yes.
You know, it's in American Beauty that was like, okay, this makes sense
Uh-huh.
here, but here it would have felt like I kind of like how Walter White only expresses sexual desires as like awful power stuff.
Yeah.
It's not good. You know, it's not good
Mm-hmm.
behavior. I just think it is kind of works for his character. Like
Mm-hmm.
he feels kind of ace to me, like asexual, not like an asexual person, but he doesn't feel motivated by sex. He
Mm-hmm.
uses sex purely as this like gross outlet.
Yeah,
And they,
it's an expression of some of the more terrible things about him.
and when I say I like it, like don't get it twisted, I like it as a character choice. Like I think it's villainous behavior.
Yes.
I just think
Yeah.
it's like an interesting aspect of his character.
Yeah.
If he was a horn dog, you know, if he was just like, I'm horny, I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to go masturbate at school, that would just feel really weird. And I don't think it would add very much.
It's the, I mean, and also the fact that like he was doing it after he heard the initial plan was him doing it after he heard the chemo side effects or whatever, and just like, well, that edges from being American Beauty to being like kind of like Palahniuk kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
that's kind of like that's like a side like a side character from Choke would do that.
Yeah, I'm glad they went with what they went with.
Yes.
Very much. So we cut over to group therapy, where, you know, Skylar confronts Walt about shutting the family out. You know, he disappears in the afternoon, and the therapist says, well, maybe it would help your family if they knew what you were doing, spending time alone. And he talks about taking these walks in nature. He likes to go on these long walks. He enjoys nature.
Yeah, enjoys being in the desert.
Yeah, and they do this the cut while he's talking about it to a cook, like what he's actually doing.
Yeah,
you know, it's real cool. He's like, oh, I love the nature, and they show the cacti, and they show the cacti out in the desert.
The delivery on this therapist is a real thorn for me in this episode, because like he says, sometimes it's just nice to not talk, and she says, time alone can be useful for some.
It's a weird delivery.
Yeah.
We go to this. We go to the cook here. Walt is mixing these chemicals, but he starts coughing and he has to stop. He got too dizzy. He runs outside. He has to pull all of his clothes off. Jesse fans him down, and this is beginning a relationship with Jesse, like a little bit of a caretaker thing. Like Jesse and Walt, you know, I've said before, I truly believe they love each other in the show, and one of the ways they express it is this kind of care. And this is a good episode for mutual care.
Yes.
You know, with Jesse caring for Walt here, and then Walt in a weird kind of sideways way caring for Jesse at the end with the climax.
Yes. Yeah. Although his is kind of wrapped up in turf kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But
TURF.
Oh yes. Yeah, there we go. Thank you. I like that Jesse is fanning him down with his porno mag.
Yeah. He's just like looking at porno out in the middle of the desert.
Just ambiently, like no big deal.
It's just, again, a guy that thing that I don't relate to.
Yeah, just like somebody looking at porn tabs on their phone, like in line at the bank. It's like, what the fuck are you doing?
Like, it's a real weird to me.
What's your end game here?
Yeah, how does this end? He notices the radiation burn in the tattoo on Walt's chest, and he knows exactly what that means.
Yeah,
you know, he's just like, yo, what the hell? When were you gonna tell me? You tell you about what? About the cancer, yo. You know, he knows, like, what stage are you? 3A. Oh, it's in your lymph nodes. Like, he gets it. He knows.
Yeah. The look that Walt gives him when he says like, oh, it's in your lymph nodes. It's like, oh, okay. Just he's looking at him like a dog just quoted Shakespeare or something. It's just kind of like, you know, like you were already pretty good to have around, but that was pretty fucking impressive, actually.
Yeah. Well done. My useful idiot.
Yeah.
You know, he talks about his aunt. You know, she lasted 7 months, and he understands. Like, oh my god, that's why you're doing this. Walt's like, do you have a problem with that? He says, whatever. Can you finish the cook? Walt says yes, and then a second later, he's like, no. You know, I love that little bit. So Jesse has to finish it there, and he's like, I'll be here if you need questions. You know, you can do this.
Yeah,
you can take care of this.
And Jesse's incredulous, like, no, like, fucking no. I was like, you know, what happened to your mad skills? You can do it. You know, again, another important, important thing here, because Jesse has been, you know, second guessing himself on this, right?
Yeah. Yep. He goes away and he says, hey, put an ice pack on your head. It'll help with the hair loss. He doesn't follow this advice, or it doesn't. We get to see this scene that the commentary spends a long time talking about birds, of them in the motel, the Crystal Palace parking lot.
This is a different motel. This is not the Crystal Palace. Yeah.
Oh, weird.
Different brickwork. Trust me, I compared.
It's pretty inconsequential. It's just Gomi walking, telling Hank, "Hey, we got some stuff from the lab on that mask. It says JP went high school."
Yeah. The Waltz figured, okay, I can just take this label off, figuring that the imprint wouldn't have gone through. He wouldn't have thought about this, And then we get a dealing montage. I like this montage quite a bit. I love that they said it to Scooby-Doo Love, the song that, it sounds just like, generic needle drop, but I always associate, like, it is the exact song that they use in the episode of Harvey Birdman where he goes to jail and he thinks he's going to be executed, but it's just a prank that his boss played on him.
They talk. I like how in the commentary in this, they talk about when they shot this, was, this handheld camera and stuff, how people look directly at the camera and how it works. And it does. And I never really gave it very much thought to this, but whenever they do these kind of scenes, people do look directly at the camera and kind of like they're posing for a trading card, but it totally works. Like you can, it feels like you're in a different reality. Than this. When you're here, like you are in a realm where it's just showing that this happened in kind of an abstract way.
Yes. I dig it. Just like the one guy showing off his grill to the camera, obviously showing it off to Jesse. And just people running down alleyways and stuff. Like it's real, kind of guerrilla, right?
The other thing I like a lot about it is that it shows people from all kinds of strata.
Yes.
Doing this. So like it seems it's all people you might expect to be meth users. And then there's like a businessman. Yeah. And then there's just like a working mom, doing laundry. Yeah. Things like that.
You forget. I'm not saying this for any, political reason, but the president's son had a crack problem. Like these drug issues are not just the lower class. They're just there's just a narrative that needs to be maintained that it is only people who are not worth caring about that do these things. Yeah.
So Jesse gets to the cook site. He's late, but this is okay because they've been making money. He dumps a wad of cash in front of Walt. He's like, "That's 26." He's like, 26,000. That's unacceptable. He's like, 2,600, and your half is 1,300 minus the cost for the phone.
Yeah,
like this is really good. I like this as an inversion of expertise.
Yes,
kind of thing. Even though it ends tragically, but just this whole idea of Walt coming to accept, like, oh, this is actually something I don't know. About.
Yeah. But he doesn't just he doesn't accept this is the thing, and just kind of like, okay, like, why didn't you move the entire thing? And Jesse's like, oh, what do I look like, Scarface? Jesse is making very good points about the nature of their arrangement. Yeah. And
the thing he accepts is that he accepts that they need to get like the distributor. Like we need to get somebody else. Like he walks Jesse through the problem. In a way, he does not have all of the information or anything like that. But it ends up being a mistake because Tuco's a maniac, but he didn't know that. Yeah. Like it ended up being like the other guy that Jesse dealt with was not.
Yes.
Like a maniac. Like Tuco is the aberration here, not just finding a distributor.
Yeah. I love Jesse's reaction, because Walt's like, okay, so is there anybody like, who was above you in this? Like, okay, well, I had a guy, but you killed him.
Yeah. He's like, who introduced you to him? Well, Emilio. But real good.
Yeah. I guess what's sticking me on this is that Walt says like, hey, this is this is a motivation problem. Yeah. Like that's not the problem. That's not what you sent Jesse out to do. You told him to move the product and he went and did it. Like he worked all night and I don't know, $1,300 for $2,600 as a take for a night's work is really good.
Yeah, he's the motivation problem thing. He's wrong, and it's not good behavior. Again, I take it as encouraging in teacher mode.
Yes,
and then also pretty motivated because he's on a clock and he has a bill. We keep seeing his checkbook balance like run down throughout the episode.
Yeah,
and near the end, he doesn't have enough for the next treatment. The last one we see.
Is it teacher mode when he tells them to just grow some fucking balls and,
No,
arrange
I
the
think that's just
meeting?
exasperation.
Okay.
Yeah. Again,
Yeah.
I think that this is a thing where when people, and not you, but when people look back on the show, the Walter White was evil the entire time narrative
Mhm.
does discount the pressure of like impending death.
Yeah.
You know, and like, yes, it's his fault for lying
Mhm.
in the first place about getting the money and stuff. But
Right.
like,
Right.
once you're in that situation, I
Yeah.
could see wanting not to be in that situation or wanting to avoid the consequences of that being very motivating.
Yes. Yeah. I just wanted to be nicer to Jesse.
Me too. I love Jesse. You know, and he, again, in a weird kind of sideways way, I think he does something kind of nice for Jesse
Yes.
in this episode.
Mhm.
We got over to chemo, more vomiting, you know, all this stuff. Hugo gives him some gum,
I love that.
you know, yeah, what a saint. The principal is like, hey, are you up for a visitor? And it's Hank. Hank's like, I'm here for some work stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. She leaves. This principal again, this you know, kind
Weird
of
red herring.
yeah, this
In the
dangling character. Yeah.
in the commentary, when Bryan Cranston says like, hey, am I getting a sex scene with her in
Yeah.
the next season? And they're like, well, if you're lucky. It's like, it's very kind of gross male locker room stuff.
Yeah.
It's
It's
not
like
just Hank.
that
who's doing
actress
it.
isn't there to defend herself from
No.
this.
Be like, well, do I have a say in this shit?
Yeah.
It's one of those things where I don't think it would happen now, but
Uh-huh.
we had to remember that, like, on one hand, 2008 was not that long ago. On
Mhm.
another hand, it was ages ago.
We've thankfully made a lot of progress since then. That's a
Yeah.
way to look at it that is not like being shitty about it. Yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
really do. I do think that is the kind of thing that made more sense then than it does now. Not that it
Yeah.
was okay,
Mhm.
you know, but it just is more plausibly, you know, deniable
Yeah.
as an excuse, I guess.
Yeah. It's one thing for Hank the character to say she's got an ass like an onion, makes me want to cry. It's another
Yeah.
thing for those actors and those people to like make a joke like that and then laugh about it. Like, that's a lady. Like, you ate lunch next to her, probably.
Yeah. It's very funny in the commentary when he's like, did you make that up? He's like, no, I think it's a rap thing. And that just the whitest crew in the world is saying around, like, I think we have this rap thing. Oh, it's plagiarism, is it? Like, just it's like fucking West Coast elites. It's a little grody.
Yeah, a little bit.
He pulls out the gas mask. The performances here are really good.
I love it.
You know, because Hank just trusts Walt implicitly.
Yeah.
You know, this is very sus. Walt is putting on his nebbish mask
Yes.
for this whole thing, you know, but clearly incredibly uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, especially when he is okay. So, like, yes, here's this ghost. Like, oh shit.
Yeah.
And then he finds out, like, oh yeah, you know, he found it, a meth cook site, fire. We found it next to an abandoned car that belonged to my snitch. Oh, he's probably been cut up and fed to the buzzards. It's kind of like, oh wait, crazy, it was a snitch.
Yep.
Shit.
It's no good. And it's another example of Walt assuming everyone is not, you know, smart, right? So like, hey, this is Hank's job. Hank would know how to make meth.
Yep.
You know, he would recognize this equipment. To Walt, it's like, no one's going to miss this.
Yeah, it's just
There's
glass,
be,
whatever.
It's just glass. Who gives a shit? Like, of course I'm going to get away with it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's real great. He goes through and he does the inventory. He sees like a lot of his stuff is missing at this while a phone is ringing in the background, which is a great shortcut for just tension. You know, we get the like, you going to answer that? He does. It's his burner phone. And it's Jesse saying like, listen, you know, you told me to apply myself. It turns out Skinny Pete, my boy, was in jail with Tuco in the same cell block.
Yeah.
So we have an introduction.
I saw this on the on the wiki. Makes sense. In the original draft, it was going to be Badger who had the hook up to Tuco before they realized no, Badger wouldn't have anything.
Tuco would break Badger in half. Tuco would not suffer Badger to live.
No, I mean Badger would just turn into a puddle of goo under his gaze. Yeah,
scratchy voiced goo. Like I just can't imagine Tuco. Like Tuco barely suffers Skinny Pete, and Skinny Pete is pretty harmless.
Yeah,
you know.
As Hank is going through the glass, I like this where he immediately like pulls a and he does exactly to Walt what Walt did to Jesse, picks up the round bottom boiler and says, oh yeah, meth heads love these. You know, things like, oh shit. Like again, it's him realizing other people are smart and competent. He knows this stuff.
Yep. Basically, I don't want to get you in trouble, but you got to start looking after your turf. We don't want people to start wondering about you. Long
Mhm.
pause, laugh. They do play this card a little bit too often
Yes.
on rewatch. Like I really like when Hank puts it together, and I like everything that follows it.
Mhm.
The near misses get a little exhausting.
Especially when they happen 5 in a row during the poker scene. Like, the poker scene's
Yeah.
good, but it's just, it's a lot like, you hiding something? What are you
Yeah.
smoking there, huh? Like,
Yeah. So we go to Jesse and Skinny Pete at Tuco's headquarters, where Mac's dad works.
I'm happy that you saw that. I also put a note down there as a
Mhm.
joke. It is not Luther. It is not that actor. No, it's a stuntman. He
Looks
just
just like. Are
happens.
you sure it's not both?
What's that?
Are you sure it's not both? Like that guy's an actor and a stuntman? Because he says he's a stuntman in the commentary.
Yeah,
Looks just like him.
it's a different guy. He's younger.
Huh.
He's younger
Okay.
and more muscular, but they have like a very similar piercing eyes and very similar face structure. For all the, I mean, for 14 years now, I have thought that was Mac's dad. I just looked at it and I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. It might be a different person. Like they're actually wildly different ages.
Oh, yeah, they look very similar.
Yeah.
They get in, they have to go through the security check-in to get their pat down or whatever. And we're introduced to Tuco for the first time doing a very cartoonishly badass thing, which is cleaning his grill with a big knife.
Yeah. I mean, I clean mine with a wire brush.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's a good way to clean a grill. I clean mine with a toothbrush. Skinny Pete comes in, tries to, pal him up, and he no-sales him.
Yeah.
He just wants to get down to business.
Right. And Tuco does, the smart thing, makes this complete stranger do a bump of meth with him, right? It's kind of like, all right, here we go. If you're in, you're in. And Tuco takes his hit off of his knife after crushing it up with his knife. He does everything with his knife.
It's Edward Scissorhands kind of situation.
He gets up and kind of flexes and says and screams something that is nonsensical to me. I have not been able to find anything that this relates to. He says, "That kicks like a mule with its balls wrapped in duct tape."
You didn't duct mules when you were in high school?
I mean,
me and the boys used to tape them up.
I live in a place where people ostensibly could have tipped cows. I did not hear tell of anybody doing any mule ducting.
Taping mules.
Yeah.
I know that if you fuck with a bull, like with its balls, I know that they bind their balls.
Okay.
For some kind of thing, and they kick. That's my guess what this is about.
Okay.
Or a similar kind of thing. It's also just some colorful language.
Yeah.
That feels a little goofy. I like it because it led to the very funny, since Breaking Bad edits are everywhere now, where Tuco crushes up one of the Infinity Stones and does this with his knife and just snorts it immediately in front of Thanos, which is pretty funny.
Yes.
To me, the most baller thing you could possibly do to Thanos. Shit. I didn't expect that for the time stone.
Well, where do we go now?
Yeah. What now? But yeah, he gets hit by it, and you get this kind of scary burst of energy.
Yes.
That happens here. He's like, it's good meth. He asks how much for, he's like, we got a deal. And Jesse says, we didn't even talk about price.
Yes.
He's basically just saying like, yes, I will take this free meth.
I will take this meth now. Yeah. It is mine. It is in my possession.
35 large for the pound. He weighs it. It's a little bit light. And he goes, okay, you can go. He goes, what do you mean? And he says, this is a consignment deal. And I love Jesse. Like, you want me to float 35 grand? Like, it's pretty fucked up. It's a lot of money.
Yeah. I mean, I've never done one of these kind of deals, but I would say there's a down payment. Maybe it's half now, half later.
At the very least.
Maybe you do a net 30 on the invoice,
The closest thing I've ever done to this is role play a Shadowrun. And in Shadowrun, you usually get half up front.
Yeah. Well, for supplies and whatnot.
Yeah. Yeah. You got to be able to buy, cyberware and stuff. Jesse goes, no, like cash up front. He tries to run off with the meth. But this place is crawling with bodyguards. He was never going to make it.
He had to go through a cage door to get here.
Yeah. I like when he gets caught. He reverts to like kid mode.
Uh-huh.
It reminds me a lot. So he starts going, come on, come on. And it reminds me a lot of in Punch Drunk Love when Barry starts getting beat up and he starts going, ow, 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 before he gets hit. Right? Like
It's really
it's
good.
funny, but it's really well observed.
Yeah.
Like you
Yeah.
regress in
Mhm.
those moments.
Yeah. When you're under threat. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Tuco, he says, okay, well, I'll give you the money.
Okay.
And he knows something is up because his mood has changed. And you can't trust, well, you can't trust anything Tuco says, but especially his mood does not swing that suddenly in the positive direction. Gets
No.
up and loads a bag with some money, and then proceeds to beat Jesse with it.
Yep.
And when he gets him down on the ground, he starts kicking him in the ribs until he coughs up blood.
Yep. Nobody moves Crystal in the South Valley but me.
Yes.
You know. We cut over to the school where Hugo is raising the flag, just doing a symbolic act. He gets arrested.
He does a little cross, and then
He pledges allegiance real quick, and then he volunteers in an old folks home.
Yeah,
shortly before getting arrested.
Yeah, as Hank walks up, he's dropping an envelope to UNICEF into the mailbox. Yeah.
After shaving off all his hair for locks of love, they immediately press him up against the car here. Everybody sees this, they're like, oh, why are they arresting him? That night, Walt is trying to call Jesse on his burner and he keeps getting his voicemail.
Yeah.
And he gets called back to poker, to playing poker with the fam.
Marie does the thing that I cannot stand in poker, which is taking the terms and then just doing like a fun little phrase with it. It's like, okay, Marie, are you checking? She's like, checks in the mail, and then slides that off.
It's very Marie.
Very Marie. Yeah. And she's, big time in everybody. And Walt, just the conversation, gets to the school and Walt's treatment and stuff. He says like, oh, I'm going to be taking a few weeks off. I talked to the principal about it, but he didn't tell Skylar yet.
Yes. Yeah. Junior says, why did Mr. Aoletta get arrested?
Mm-hmm.
And Hank tells him like, hey, he, it turns out he fit the profile. Some stuff was missing. It turns out he had some background busts for pot. We searched his truck, found a blunt, searched his apartment. We could not find the glassware or anything, but we just found lots of pot.
Yeah. Which sucks. He shouldn't have been arrested for that.
No, this is again 2008 shit. Like this would play very differently now, where like public opinion has been like, no, that's ridiculous. I mean, a janitor. Like I need my people who are working miserable menial jobs that you don't have to think about to be able to relieve themselves in some way.
Yes.
Like it's the least everyone who makes a pizza for me is high as hell.
It's the least they deserve, honestly. Yeah.
Like if that makes the job of cleaning up high schooler piss and pubes a little bit easier, smoke as much pot as you want.
Yeah. Ideally, you would get more money for this and more time off, but like take this refuge. Like they cannot hold this. They cannot hold this captive. And I am tapping my head, but I'm also making smoking a doobie motion.
It's a very a little again very 2008 of Hank to have this attitude with pot, right?
Yes.
Because Hank he's in the DA.
Yeah.
He understands pot's a crime, but he has he wasn't such a good guy after all. And I can't, it's weird for Hank to care about personal pot use.
Yeah.
Personally. Like it's a job concern. He has to care about it for his job.
Yeah.
But I can't imagine him actually thinking less of somebody smoking pot.
He says that directly to Junior. He's like, it turns out he's not so cool after all. Like Junior expressed this, it's like, so what's going to happen to him? Like, this guy was a saint. Everybody at this high school loved him. And, I think that this is Hank, I think, getting in there and trying to do the anti-drug message on this impressionable teen.
It would have been, I would have expected it to be, since he found out about, he's still under the impression that Walt is smoking pot. I wanted this to be a saber rattle at Walt.
Yes.
As opposed to that.
And he's kind of doing a little bit of that, like when it gets to the bluffing stuff.
He does it with the poker stuff.
Yeah.
Like some of it, but it's also, I don't think he suspects that Walt is doing meth here. I think this is just double meaning stuff.
Yes.
Like this is Walt being paranoid.
Yeah.
more than anything. If he suspected this early in the show, we wouldn't have a show.
Well, I mean, just like the smoking pot thing, right?
Yeah.
Kind of like, oh, are you into that kind of deal? And like a lot of it could also be like what the show is presenting is, Walt's paranoia about his about his brother-in-law.
He's acting
Working
real
for the
fucking
DA.
weird too.
He is.
Like
Yeah.
he's not being present in the poker game.
Yes.
So yeah, all these things
Yeah.
that Hank is doing, where he's like, you're hiding something, changing the subject back to poker makes sense with Walt in this weird,
Yeah.
aloof state.
Feeling guilty. Like, not only should Hugo not have been arrested just because and victimless crime, but also like
It's Walt's fault.
it's Walt's fault. Like the only reason that anybody looked at Hugo was because of Walt taking that gear and then not understanding there would be consequences for it. Right.
Yeah. Hugo is one of the lost victims of this show. Like,
Yes.
you don't think about Hugo anymore.
No.
He doesn't come back. I kept expecting him to come back in the finale of Better Call Saul with like a gun and a vengeance, like in the modern timeline.
Oh yeah.
You don't know me, but
so Walt expresses some doubt about whether Hugo actually had it in him, and Hank says nothing personal, Walt, but you wouldn't know a criminal if he was close enough to check you for a hernia. Obvious irony there, but also like this is
he's
taken
stepping
from
to Walt.
yeah,
he's like you are underestimating me, fucker.
yes, yeah. So this is a wound. And I think that this is also what leads him not just a desire to win the poker game, which you want to do, but also like leads to Walt very specifically, kind of stunting on Hank in the poker, on the poker hand, right?
Yeah, he bluffs him.
Mm-hmm.
He does. He's like, what will happen to Hugo? And Hank just like loses his job, as he should. Skylar's like, yeah, because again, she's very shitty about pot as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then they kind of go back and forth, and Walt eventually gets Hank to fold.
Yeah. River cards come out, and it's like, oh, and throwing in, and Hank's like, oh, you got to man up, or you're going to puss out. You're a terrible liar, like all of that. And, Hank folds. Marie says, hey, this is really anticlimactic. And she checks the hands, which it's not the done thing. Hank threw away a king and an ace. There was at least one ace out there on the cards that were showing, which Walt had a 7 and a 2, the worst hand you can get. Yeah,
a crazy handful of nothing.
Yeah,
like the show title, like the Cool Hand Luke. Thing. So we cut over Walt showering. His hair starts falling out in clumps. He drinks a ginger ale. He calls Jesse again, and this time Skinny Pete answers.
Yes.
He finds out where Jesse's at.
Just a tip on this for anybody who ends up going through chemo, which could be any of us. Do not drink something that you like a lot while you're on chemo, because you will eventually, like later on, just completely detest it. My mom underwent chemo for breast cancer a long time ago. She's in remission. She can no longer drink ginger ale, and it's sad because she loved it. So, just a cancer pro tip for folks.
It makes sense because it's a anti-nausea.
Yes,
thing. Choose Sprite.
Yeah, choose Sprite.
Walt goes and visits Jesse in the hospital room. I really like this. Like Jesse's interaction. I love this bit of Skinny Pete's like, are you the guy? And he's like, yeah, I'm the guy. Like, I love the resignation of that. Skinny Pete says, Skinny Pete's being genial because he's also seems like a real fun guy.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't catch your name. Walt doesn't answer, but he says, tell me everything you know about Tuco.
Yeah.
And this is a turf thing. This is a revenge to his dignity. It is also guilt.
Yes.
I think real guilt, for what he talked Jesse into doing. I think there's a genuineness to this.
Yeah. Jesse knew. Jesse told him this would be dangerous, right? Yep. Like, oh, just here's a stranger saying, do you want to buy a felony quality of methamphetamine? Like, it's, he's culpable for this. So he's gonna, he's putting his plan together, right? Yep. The next morning we get a POV of him taking just the rowdiest orange piss.
Like, something's wrong.
Go see a doctor. I know that you
Yeah.
probably have too many doctors in your life, and I don't know what chemo does to somebody's urine. It should not be that.
I have to assume this is chemo related. This is
I
orange drink.
I don't. The only other thing is that everybody in the chain of custody of this shot, from the person who mixed the colored water to the person who did the color grading, needs to hydrate more.
Yeah.
Somebody at the network needed to say, "Hey, listen,
It's so close to piss too. It's really it's really bad. And there's a thing. So like my medical journey, like one of the things that can happen is you can have dark piss as a kidney problem thing. That is an indicator of kidney failure. Like not an early indicator either. Like go to the hospital now.
Right.
Indicator of kidney failure. That was the first thing I thought of when I saw this. And it just, it's nothing. It's kind of positioned as a normal piss. And that's the problem. It's a real like Chekhov's piss kind of thing. Like I was really expecting them to reckon with this horrible urine, and they never do.
I'm sick and tired of everybody pretending like this isn't a problem.
I know. What is this? Am I the only sane person here? He takes pills and he's noticing the bald spots in his head.
Yeah.
Here. So he shaves his head, which a lot of people who go through chemo do. Like I don't have control over this. A lot of old men do it as well. It's AKA the Billy Corgan.
Yeah. I like the head shaving thing. Like it's like some people turn it into a party. Yeah. Like, my mom did. She had friends over to like just for it to happen, which is something she got off of some kind of support group or whatever. But it makes sense. Just like like I can either be terrified of this and mourn it, or like fuck it, I'm going to take control. Like this is what we're going to do.
Yeah. So he comes down. He doesn't announce it to the family. This is the first time the other actors had seen it. They knew it was going to happen, but they didn't see it. They kept that as a reveal for them, so their reaction would be real. It's real cute.
Yes,
it's a real cute scene.
Yeah, and Skylar starts kind of tearing up, just like oh well, hi. Doesn't want to doesn't want to make him feel bad about it or anything. But I love Junior's reaction. Junior's just kind of badass.
Yeah, badass, like, Dad. It just like it's real, and he just kind of nods. Like it's very sweet.
Yeah, I love the little peek up that Walt does. At Skylar, like as he's buttering his toast. It's like, okay. It's like, are you all right? Like, are we cool here? Yeah.
This and there's also an element, there's a subtext, like he's not doing this, but in terms of like internal life stuff, like she wanted this. He was saying he wasn't going to do treatment. She really wants him to get treatment.
Yeah.
This is what treatment is. It's going to diminish him. This is what he was afraid of in a lot of ways. He's taking time off work. He's not able to do these things he wants to do. If they'd kept the masturbation scene in there, I don't know if he would have come from that.
He wasn't on the chemo yet. He had just heard about the side effects.
Yeah. I don't know what his masturbation future would be like, but this is the reality of what she was asking for. It doesn't mean she was wrong to ask for it, but it is the whole thing. It's the bad with the good.
Yeah. No.
We get to the climax of the episode. So Walt takes his big bag of meth up to Tuco. Talks to the guy who looks like Mac's dad. And he's like, I'm not going to leave until I talk to Tuco there.
Yeah.
Tuco lets him in. He gets his pat down and stuff. They take his meth here. And he's like, what's your name? Walt introduces himself as Heisenberg. This is the beginning of that.
Because he's a chemistry nerd, right?
Yes.
It's also fairly anonymous. It for anybody who doesn't remember.
Ethan Winters.
And badly needs a shave.
Yes.
Yeah.
Bitch Miranda. No, Mr. White, that bitch Miranda called.
Oh, God. But he pulled that from Werner Heisenberg, the author of the uncertainty principle, the idea that when it comes to subatomic particles, I believe, or at least with an electron, you can either know its position or its velocity, but not both. Yeah. But more broadly, like, uncertainty, like, yes, this is nobody knows what I'm gonna do kind of deal. He's just picking that and hoping somebody on the street will pick up, and like it's his way of calling himself a wild card.
Yeah. I mean, he probably doesn't think anyone's going to pick it up.
Oh, no. It's just a name.
He's not hoping anything. He just needed to come. Like, I don't know what I would come up with. I had to come up with a Shadowrunner name.
Yeah.
Like, legitimately.
Mm-hmm.
That actually described me. Fuck.
Yeah.
They call me Waveform. You know, fucking horrible.
They call me Sure.
I'm duh. Yeah, like it was just
Hi, I'm Logic.
like, everyone on Duckfeed should get their own Shadowrunner name like this. Like, so he introduces himself. He's has them, his bag of meth. He says he wants $50,000, 35 for the meth that you stole and 15 for my partner's pain and suffering. And he didn't have to add that in. He wants the money, of course, but I think there's a genuine, like, Jesse got the shit beat out of him. That needs to be, the scale needs to be balanced.
Yeah. And also, like, he's probably discerned that a big move is necessary on this.
Yes.
Like, just an understanding that this can't happen again. Like, we need to be square, right?
Yep. So Tuco, I was like, oh yeah, Jesse, that little bitch. Your plan. I steal your meth. I beat the crap out of your partner, and your plan is to bring me more meth. And he's laughing, and it seems like he has the upper hand, and then we get the very famous, well, there's one thing you don't know. This is not meth. He takes a tiny little chunk of this and throws it down, causing a huge explosion.
Yes. And we see this, from the outside, it like blows the air conditioner off. People scatter from outside of this building.
This has been myth busted.
Yes.
It would cause that kind of explosion, but if it did, it would kill everyone inside.
Of course.
At that amount. Also, crystallized fulminated mercury is really hard to do.
Yes.
It's usually a powder.
Yes, usually a kind of like a sickly yellow powder is the understanding. I need to like find those episodes, the Breaking Bad specials and Mythbusters.
The clips from them, you can watch them all in clip form on YouTube.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
I like the actual action of that show. All of the pageantry on the way to it gets a little annoying to me.
It's the biggest ever. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't really want to deal with the rapper. It's very similar to the Game Awards we were talking about last episode. Like, I just want the trailers, and YouTube is a perfect avenue for Mythbusters.
Oh yeah.
Like, I don't actually like any of those people's personalities. I'm not here to hang out. I just want a bullet pointed list. With this stuff.
Man, everything should be a bullet pointed list.
How can I divorce myself from humans? Or just the humans that I choose, I just these hosts.
Oh, you just eventually.
Eventually I'll be divorced. I have a lot of friends and stuff. I like people. I just don't like people on TV.
Yeah, it's none of my business.
Like, you imagine, like, if you got really, like, let's say they did one of these shows, like the Walking Dead after show thing for Breaking Bad. Like, I think they did that for Better Call Saul.
Well, they did one for they did Talking Bad. Yeah.
Oh yeah, they did do Talking Bad. I cannot imagine putting up with Chris Hardwick to get any content.
Nope.
Like, even if that content was like $400, I don't know that I would go and like hang out with Chris Hardwick for an hour. I don't know. I just don't want to deal with host personalities.
Yeah, that's rough for us.
I mean, it's great for, like, I like us. I don't, maybe it's because we have this job that I don't want to interface. Maybe I see too much of myself in a host,
Maybe. I
don't know. But Walt's plan is like, I'll blow up this whole fucking block. He grabs the entire bag. Like, that little chunk would do this. And it was a real gamble, because if Tuco had snorted this or hit it with the butt of his knife,
he didn't know. He didn't know that Tuco smashed it with his knife.
And he would probably know that, because he told Skinny Pete, tell him everything.
Yeah.
So he probably knew the order of operations of the whole thing.
Yeah.
But he's taking it's a real gamble.
Yeah. I love the way that he holds the bag up. Like, he looks fucking crazy. Like, this is a preview of like season 4 Walt, just doing the scramble with Gus. Right.
He's got a dynamite vest, basically. Tuco relents at this point. He's like, that crystal you sold faster than $10 ass and TJ. I'll buy another pound. Walt growls money up front. And Tuco says, all right, as long as we got an understanding. And Walt, big time's like, that's not enough. You have to take 2 pounds. Very funny.
Yeah. How about $70,000?
Yeah. And this is going to cause problems as they continue after, this is going to have effects. Tuco asked what the thing was. He's fulminated mercury. with just a tweak of chemistry. He says it in a self-satisfied way that a game theory. Like I just really don't like how he says it.
No, just
a
a
bad line delivery.
tweak of chemistry. Yeah.
Bad
line too. Bad line too. I don't care for that.
Yeah. It's a cool sequence. It's a undeniably cool thing to have happened.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a little strokey. And then we get to the walkaway that we flash forwarded to in the beginning of the episode.
Mm-hmm.
Him going to the car, getting in the car with the money, and letting loose.
Yeah, I love this. I love the gradient on display here. Like he goes through like 5 different emotions over the course of this. As the adrenaline lets up, right? He gets in the car and he's, like yelling. He picks up the money and like holds it up to his face and then like that yelling just segues into like rage. And then that peters out and he's like afraid, like, oh God, just like processing that there. And then finally, like there's a beat and then he just kind of smiles and that's when it ends.
Yeah.
That like in that one barbaric yawp, let's say, we get like a little microcosm of his journey. It's very good.
Yeah. Over another like actionably similar song. It's not like the one that was The Passenger.
It's just a style parody of Bob Dylan.
Yeah. It's very it's very just like the cheapest equivalent of whatever the song could be. But yeah, that's the end. In my mind, I was worried because I had rewatched this before this, and I was worried he's going to go home and like have celebratory sex again.
Mm-hmm.
Like in my head, I kind of inserted another one of those scenes.
Right.
Happen there.
Yeah. It's taken as read. Well, but he, in the next episode, he does start feeling up Skylar in front of all those people. Yeah.
Yeah. Does the bullshit.
Yeah.
He fingers her under a table, if I remember.
I don't know if I need to watch it again. I can't remember if he's.
At one point he fingers her under a table and then they fuck in a car.
Yes. Maybe it's that. Yeah.
Pretty slick. I can't remember though because I'm
smooth operator.
Cool move, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anywho, that is the episode. It's a really good episode. A great episode. I'm very excited to get to season 2. The show finds a lot more of its feet in season 2, and we're going to get into some richer stuff. But it's really fun to visit these origins with a close-up lens.
I'm going to be happy to get plots with Jesse that do not always revolve around or necessitate the presence of Walt. Yeah. Like him with Jane is very good.
Yes. Even though we'll talk about Jane's character.
Yes.
This, I'm also obviously really looking forward to Saul showing up. This will be my first time watching the Saul episodes, having watched Better Call Saul, having this additional kind of insight on that character. So that's going to be great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks everybody for listening. What should they do, Cole?
Well, let me take a quick look at the calendar. I mean, as this comes out, Duckstream is happening. So if you're listening during the weekend of the 16th, 17th, and 18th, go to Duckfeed.tv/Duckstream or Twitch.tv/Duckfeed.tv. We'll be streaming to support the Transactive Ginger Project out of Lewis and Clark College. There we go. Yes. Yeah. That is the plans for that are coming together and I'm very excited about it. It's a good time. Watch and give if you can.
Absolutely. You can also support us on Patreon by going to patreon.com/DuckFeed.tv. You can leave us ratings, reviews on Apple Podcasts or Podcast Addict, and you can tell your friends. It's a great time to rewatch the Breaking Bad universe.
Wonderful time. Yeah. If only so people can appreciate the memes.
Yeah, absolutely. The Mario Kart thing, it's great. And until next time, we need a replacement filter for a Max Presser Pro Zapper Dupe
Hoover Max
Flipper
Extract Pressure Pro 60
Flipper Dupe,
of course.